guys, welcome back. Time for another Ask the Colorist. This time I have a email from Natalie Blaise, Blais, and she wrote me a lengthy email, but I thought it was really interesting. And in it, it's funny because, well, you'll see what she writes. As I'm rewatching the last class for the umpteenth time, I had to stop because I was really mixed up. Prismacolor has French grays, cool grays, and warm grays. Polychromos only has warm and cool, plus a very dark gray. What do I use instead of French grays for nature? I need a trick, and an easy one, please, to remember what each gray goes with what, because grays confuse the heck out of me. Then she gave us a couple of really interesting combinations. Clay Rose equals Polychromos 913 burnt carmine plus 270 warm gray 1 and white. Okay, and then she gave us Beige Sienna equals Polychromos 180 burnt ochre plus 272 warm gray 3. Those look close to me, especially for the clay rose. If you know a better recipe, please feel free to enlighten me. Also, I am finding mixing colors like these. It looks okay on my scrap, but like crap on my drawing, even though I am using the same paper. Looks uneven and patchy. Can't understand why, and it's frustrating. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's confused with the various grays. You probably have done this video explaining them, but I couldn't find it. Can you help me? I certainly can, Natalie. Natalie is confused about the grays, and I don't blame her because they are confusing. There are a lot more colors than just the cool grays and the warm grays. So we have cool gray, we have warm grays, we have neutrals, we've got green grays, and there's French gray. Okay, cool gray you would use when the surrounding area is blue or cool. Now the blues could be purple, and that would be the bluish purple side. Warm grays are colors that are associated with the sun. So you've got red, orange, yellow, and some green. Blue greens can also be cool. So you would have the yellow greens as being warm and the blue greens as being cool. So purple and green can go either way. Neutrals are associated with the straight line of black to white. Okay, so they don't tend to have other colors or lean towards other colors. Green grays, obviously, are your greens. And French grays are your grays that are mixed with beige, taupe, and colors like that, tans. And that's when you get your French gray. Now, what are the rules of working with this? Well, it's art, so there's never 100%. When the surrounding area is cool, you would try first a cool gray. When it's warm and you have all these colors are the predominant color, or the color that's even next to the color that you're using, you're going to use the warm grays. Neutrals can go either way. Green, obviously, you use your green grays, and your French grays are your nature colors. And that's what you specifically asked for. So if I was working on, say, a leaf or a tree, and the surrounding colors are things that I would find in nature, I would go with the French grays. But if you don't have French grays, revert over to your warm gray, because warm grays would also have some of the browns in them too. Every rule is meant to be broken. So say you're working on a picture and you use a warm gray, but it just doesn't look right. You can cool that down by just mixing in some cool gray. Or you can warm up a cool gray by adding a warm color. So you have to think of the grays when you think of temperature and how you're going to neutralize those temperatures on the page and what the atmosphere is like. So those are really the way you're going to, or a beginner should think about grays. Later on you can get into more experimentation on things that you might find that look good. Now one of them would be red with a cool gray, because red and blue look really good together, and cool grays will sort of tone down your red. And so I always use a cool gray with red. So there are exceptions to these rules, but at the beginning, and you're first starting to use your grays, these are a good bouncing off point of when to use them. Now, the second part of your question is a little bit more difficult, and we're going to work on that now. The next part of her question dealt with creating two different colors. Now, apparently she has Polychromos, and she wants to create two colors that are found in the Prismacolor sets. Now, where I'm not saying that it's impossible to do, because I'm going to show you it's not impossible, this type of thing is kind of difficult because, one, Polychromos and Prismacolor are the same company. I don't know if you guys realize that, and I'm sure they work together. The colors are not duplicated exactly, and they're not always just a little bit of gray and a little bit of white difference between them. They really picked and chose their colors so that if you want another color, you've got to purchase the color. So the first one is Clay Rose. And Clay Rose is a muted color, and it's Prismacolor. And here we have what we're trying to create, and that's Clay Rose. Now, her combination that she figured out is to use burnt carmine. So here's burnt carmine, warm gray 1, and white. Now, I can already see that it's not a bad choice that she made, and I can see her making that choice. So here are the three colors. Here's the color, the target color that we're looking for. Out of the box, I probably would have gone for this also. This and this have a very close, but more like a similar base color. So you could see red in both of them. So we're in the same ballpark. It's the direction that you want to go in. I don't really need my color wheel for this because I can eyeball it, but you could check it against the color wheel and make sure that you are in the right ballpark. I already know we are. So if we do the combination of this, and then I'm going to put the gray on top of it. I can already see where she thought that this was Clay Rose, because this and this are similar. There is a little bit more brown in this. When mixing these two colors, I can already tell this is too red. But it might not be the worst choice. It might be the only choice that you're being given. So let's add a little bit of white, lighten it up, and let's melt it down. I'm going to use a little thinner so that it goes by quick. Okay, so you can definitely see that it's more pinkier and more brown. This is more brown and this is pinkier. So let's see if there's anything else that we can even look at to try that's available in the Polychromos set. My number one, if you're trying to duplicate Prismacolor, go out and buy a Prismacolor set. It makes it so much easier, because also in her email, she's having trouble with large laydown. And that does not surprise me because you're using Polychromos. Polychromos is like cellophane. You're going to put one color on top of another, on the top of another. It's not like you're blending up a Prismacolor, which will blend up like batter and create the new color. This is, you're trying to put it on top of each other. And that's going to be a very difficult thing in a large area. If you're going for a picture, like you're looking at a reference picture and it's a small area of this type of color, that's fine. Then you can mix this up in a small area and then just use a little bit of blending medium on it. And it blends up right away and it dries very quickly. So I'm going to look and see what we can do with this. Now we want to add in another brown. So I'm going to start with Bistre. And let me take a look at what the color is. That's a little bit too yellow. I don't think it's going to work. I'm going to take a piece of it. Not an awful choice. It is browning it up. So you might be able to, say I was doing a picture and I needed this color, I'm pretty much going to choose Bistre as your top color. Now it also all depends on what it looks like. Also depends on your laydown, especially from Polychromos. So let's see what it looks like if I add this first. And then try to redden it up instead of the other way around. It's coming very close. So I think you're going to have to lay down the brown, the Bistre, I know somebody will correct me, color first on the bottom, and then redden it up from there. That's a pretty good batch. And let's see if we can using the warm gray 1, and let's take a look at it as it blends into that's an insignificant difference of color. You've got the color combo there. So you were close. Just one layer more of the next color, and you basically have it down. If you want it a little bit redder, add a little bit more of the redder color on it, and you'll be fine. You've just created clay rose. Now, the next one. But also, as I said, you're going to want, really, if you're looking to make Prismacolor, buy a Prismacolor set. It's your best option. I think from the look of your email that you're ready to move on to new colors. You're beginning to see colors in colors. You did a very good job in finding the base color on that one. So I think you're ready to go on to exploring new colors, and you're definitely seeing new things. I'm really proud of you. Okay, so the next color that we're going to work with, we want to create Beige Sienna. Okay, so I have Beige Sienna. And let's get a sample down so we know where we're headed for. Okay, so now we have the Beige Sienna and a sample of it. Now, according to you, your combination, we're going to be using burnt ochre. So let's take a look at the burnt ochre as a base, and then you were adding in your gray, and you added in warm gray 3? Yeah. Warm gray 3. So according to you, you think that these two will create this. I'm going to tell you no. This is much more red. This is yellow. So your base color is a bit off. It's just not perfect. Now let's take a look at what happens when you mix them. And I can already see that this is yellow and this is red. But You also may be able to add that other color, and I know you also said that you could add white to it, but it's not going to change the base color being yellow. You might be closer than you think. And let's see what this is. God, I can't read these things. CaputMortuum. Okay. I cannot read the gold off of Polychromos. It's the worst thing. Like, I sometimes avoid teaching using Polychromos only because it's a pain in the ass reading the gold foil. I just want to see what... This has a nice red base on it. And I'm wondering... And let me see what happens when you add in a little bit of gray. No gray. So we're looking at... this and this. Red has to go on top. We make good partners. Let me tell you, you can find your original colors. I'll do the details on the top. We can figure out it all. That is a very, very close match. Close enough that I would say I would go with it in any sort of art installation, any artistic way. Bingo match. We got it. So your Beige Sienna is CaputMortuum and your burnt ochre. You really want to kill me here. Ochre. I know, everybody tries to teach me that. It goes, I can do it sometimes, and I can't do it all the time. Ochre. Not okra. Ochre. I forgot there was a rhyme to it. I have to write this down and, tattoo it on my forehead. Well, you know what I mean. These two colors create Beige Sienna. Pretty darn close. And also, another recommendation is just go out and buy a Prismacolor set. But there's your color combinations, and that's about as close as you're going to get. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to work on a little bit of a picture using my French grays, just for the hell of it. Book I've had for a really long time, Tenderful Enchantments by Klara Markova. I haven't bought any of her new stuff because I have so many of her older books that aren't colored in yet, but I can tell you that I love her work. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pick a light source. I don't care what you do on your pictures. You could have your lighting coming from here, straight down, up, this way. It doesn't matter the direction. But your picture needs to be cohesive, and a light direction needs to be chosen. So from my picture, I am choosing a light that is going to come down because this sun, it's going to come down within the trees, and it's going to filter down towards the baby squirrel. I'm going to do a little bit of coloring on here so that we have enough to play with the grays, and I'll be right back. Another thing when doing your picture, now this one happens to have a lot of leaves in it. You have to look at which way the leaf is bending. And I want to show you on this picture, it has a couple of different things going on for it. You've got your light source coming in this direction. This leaf is bending this way, okay? The light is going to hit right up here, and it's going to go dark down here. Over here, the light is coming in. It might hit over here because this side is going back further. So you might want to put your light in right over here. But the leaf next to it, now watch this. The leaf is over this leaf. Down here is automatically going to be shaded. But this leaf bends this way. I have to always look at the bend of the leaf. It's going to automatically be darker down here and lighter up here. So while this leaf, my highlights are going to go this way, this leaf, my highlight is going to be going in this direction. Knowing where to put your lights is going to make the biggest difference in your picture. That is a beginner, an intermediate, advanced skill. It's number one. So I'm going to start by shading up all the leaves for you. Decided to finish this off in a dark French gray. Here's where I'm going to add the shadows. Now, because I chose a light source that was coming this way, all my shadows are going to be this way. I'm actually going to use a 90% French gray, a black, And I have out a 70%, just in case I need something lighter. If I'm going this way and my shadows are all going this way, I'm going to start over here and I'm going to work my way across the page. This is going this way, so my shadow is going to be right in here, besides the fact that it's dark in that area. This is going to shadow on top of there. You see how nicely the French gray blends into the leaf? Now, this is technically behind. I'm not going to see a shadow from here to there because the light is coming this way and the shadow's going this way. My shadow would be underneath. So I'm not worried about this. Now, this is behind the nest, so there would be no shadow there. If it was above, I would have a shadow over there. Now, the nest sort of curls into itself, so I'm going to put a shadow into all the areas that the light wouldn't hit. Now, I know you're like, oh, I can never do that because your colors are all pretty. It'll blend out nicely. It'll look more natural. Now, you see how this is above the pillow. This is going to have a shadow right in there. Okay? These go all in here. Now, it's dark on dark, so you wouldn't necessarily see the shadow, but I'm putting it in anyway. He's in the bed, in the nest. This flower is deep. This is coming up above the nest, so all of this is shadowed by his tail. Okay, coming down here, you would have the nest shadowing the leaves down here. So I'm going to make sure all under here is dark. And although I'm covering up a lot of color, you don't normally see that color anyway, and it looks more natural when it has the shadow. So again, we're coming this way. Right in here would be shadowed. All in here would be shadowed. This leaf is on top of that branch. It gets shadowed. This leaf is on top over here. Okay. Now up here, now we're pushing this way. This leaf would be shadowed right here. The little bug would have a little bit of a shadow underneath him. This would all be shadowed in here. See, it's very easy to figure out. And I want to make this a little darker so that it looks like it's curling over. See, this would be the highlight where the light is hitting it, and then it's curling back down. Now over into here, all of this would be shadowed. All in here would be darker. Okay, now I want to make the squirrel pop a little bit more. I mean, there's so many little details that you could put in. Now, some of those shadows I'm going to make even darker. And here's where I get out my black. Right in the deepest crevice of it. Which would be like, I guess, a termination if it was round. The darkest area. I'm sorry, occlusive. Duh. Occlusive shadow, not the terminator line. Now, an occlusive shadow is where an object hits another object and occludes the light. So that's right up against two objects. That would all be dark. Now, why did I pick the French gray? Well, besides I'm answering the question about French gray, but because it's brown and earthy. It's 4 colors. Now what I'm doing is I'm stretching my tones out, making sure my darks are dark and my lights are light. Now, remember when we talked about in the leaf lesson, when a highlight goes on the vein and when it doesn't? This is an example of when it doesn't. Even though it's a little bit thicker, you can put in a little bit, but it should be dark in there because this is the top sides of the leaf. If it was the bottom part of the leaf and I wanted this little area in here to stick out, that's when I would reach for my lighter color or my highlight color. In fact, I haven't used white at all in this picture. This little neck is scrunched up, so there would be a shadow in there just from being there, and behind the ear as the light comes down, hits the top of the ear. And this is just rounding out the head. I could have spent more time working on him, but then the video is going to get very, very long. Just add a couple of black strands of hair into him. I used to have a pet squirrel. I have a very big fondness for them. Chippy. He would have been about close to 20 now. Maybe even older. I got him the same week as my neighbor brought him to me. And it was the same neighbor that basically brought me my cat. I was a licensed rehabber, wildlife rehabber in New York, and everybody would bring me everything. Even though I did only reptiles, I would get the craziest animals. We had a bobcat at one point, a wild little thing. Ooh, really wild. I got on some sort of list for rehabbers. I don't know how I got on it. I guess the public put you on it, or they did it. I don't know. I saw it once, and then people used to call and tell me, like, rehabber site. They said if I beg, you'll take anything, and I'm like, what? And then I took everything. I never turned anything down. Well, that's not 100% true. I didn't take in raccoons. Because squirrels, I did take in the squirrels, the baby squirrels, because they could be released. I couldn't release the raccoons in my area because my neighbors would have killed me. I lived in a residential area and we had enough raccoons going through our garbage cans for me to be adding more. Ooh, they would not have been happy. They didn't love my squirrels because my squirrels were half tame. And they would knock on people's doors for nuts and stuff. So they weren't thrilled with my squirrels, but they tolerated them. And then, of course, I was responsible for every wildlife that was in the neighborhood. I lived on an animal reserve off of Long Island Sound. I mean, it was actually designated a wildlife preserve. Everybody knew it because there were signs everywhere. Yet every wild animal they brought me thinking it was mine. This must have escaped. No, that's like native. I didn't know we had these animals. Well, yeah, put it back. So the only animals I wouldn't take are raccoons. I wasn't thrilled with possums, but possums are not as nasty as people think they are. When they're older, they're just kind of ugly. So people have bad feelings about them, but they're actually quite gentle. But I never raised a possum. Plenty of squirrels. My first one was Chippy. And I remember him so well because, well, he was my first squirrel rehab. And second of all, he came back to me after he was released. I got him as a baby. A tiny little thing. Didn't even have his eyes open yet. And then he was released. And a couple of months later, he knocked on my door. And they do that. And I was like, oh, it's Chippy. And he had a cyst on him about the size of a baseball. Got him in the house. By this time, he was very wild. Because their wild instincts come right back to them. I finally got him in the house. And got him over to the vet. And the vet took a cup of pus out of his side. And he was diagnosed with what we would call chicken pox, but for squirrels. Only squirrels got it. And it was more than likely because he didn't get mother's milk and the antibodies, which is unfortunate for released squirrels. But it's one of those things where they get it once and they don't usually survive. But Chippy survived for a year in my house with me cleaning his wound. And then one day, my daughter, she was only a little thing at the time, saw Chippy running around in my living room and opened the door. He just left. He just walked out. He was fine. I was going to do a release on him anyway, but she decided to do the release for me. And out the door Chippy went. And yes, I did see him again. But they become wild, so they don't really want to be around you. But I would see him in the neighborhood. I'm just stretching my tones now. You notice every leaf is done differently, because the light hits every leaf differently. And as I said, now I'm just going over my tones, making sure whatever's supposed to be dark is dark. And the squirrel, it could use work. A lot of it, but I don't have that type of time. I may finish this. That's not true. This is coming out really good. So I may come back to this one. Squirrels they have some gray in them. They've got browns. And if you ever hold one, you'll notice that their tail, it's really weird. Their tail has like every color in it. It's not one color, but when you put it, like all the fur together, you look at it like it's a brown tail or like a grayish brown tail. It's a French gray. But in reality, it's every strand is like a different color. They're actually very pretty. They're actually really fun animals. Especially when they're young, they're very affectionate. Not so much when they get older. That's how you know they're ready for release. That they get kind of wild. They're not that cute little adorable animal that you got when they were a baby. All of a sudden they start to bite. Even if you raised it, they can give you a good one. Yeah, that's what a squirrel tail looks like. What black am I using? God, my chroma flow. I could probably work on him for a couple of hours. I'm going to stop here, because we're already at 24 minutes in this segment. I have a lot of editing to do. Okay, so that's French Gray, and that's the fall colors. And I will see you in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.